right, hello everyone. Sorry for a little delay here. Everyone seems to be signing on right now, so we'll give people a couple minutes. How's everybody doing today? For our Tuesday town hall meeting. We'll probably we'll give people a minute here. We'll just stick with the same strategy and same process. And so as I see the numbers really start to level out, then we can go from there. All right, I hope everyone is doing well. It's a couple minutes after 3, so we'll go ahead. Even the numbers are starting to still pop up, but we'll just go ahead and start. And like, you know, last couple of weeks we got you out a little early. I think we'll be able to do that the same again today. So I did want to touch on a few things, and Sharon's going to join me in a minute. But currently, we're happy to say that everyone is healthy in all the residential programs. We don't have any current people having been tested or show any symptoms or haven't recently been tested. The COVID center remains closed. We haven't had to open that up since we talked about that last week, so that's great news. And we have no active COVID cases in any of the group homes or any need for anyone to get tested right now. So our sort of trend in our data sort of looks exactly like DDS's Northeast region data that they touched on today in one of our meetings. The numbers are definitely down around this area in the Northeast region, and things have seemed to stabilize quite a bit as far as positive cases. There are still positive cases within the developmental disability services, but NuPath doesn't currently have any of those, but certainly other agencies are still experiencing some positive cases and some quarantine situations going on. We continue to utilize the mobile testing through DDS, which is continuing to be offered about once a week now, unless requested for a agency-specific one. So there is one coming up this week. And again, I guess I would just say to all staff and families of individuals that if there is a need for someone to get tested, or they feel like they need to be tested or would have been exposed, let us know and we can help get you hooked up with one of those tests. I'm not sure exactly what day the mobile testing is today, but maybe Sharon will have that information. So all of it is good news. All of it is good news. And so that, you know, I know that provokes as much happiness as it provokes. It builds anxiety about some additional questions about reopening and reopening strategy and when what are the timelines looking like? What's the conversation at the state level? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. I thought I'd bring on Sharon now, if we could, Greg. And Sharon can just expand on anything I said, see if she has to correct me with anything. And then we'll go from there as far as what we know for reopening strategies and timelines that have been discussed. I do think, you know, I'll take this opportunity again to just say thank you to all the residential staff and managers and teams and all the day service staff that have been working in the residential homes and continue to just do an outstanding job providing services to the individuals, and have worked through some certainly unique circumstances with the difficulty of having, you know, the limitations of getting out into the community and getting on activities. And you know, I think that staff have done a tremendous job, and I'm so grateful and so thankful to all those staff who have pitched in. And also, you know, I'm also appreciative of all the other staff who have worked with the virtual health and online learning. That has certainly come so far, and to be able to see the positive impact you've had on people's lives that we've heard here in some of the Unity forums, and the engagement and the excitement it brings some of the individuals to participate in those classes. Hopefully hopefully that message gets to you, because it certainly has gotten to us. It has been very well received, and it's a great great sort of pivot that we've been able to do. So hello, Sharon, welcome.
Hi. How you
How you
doing?
doing? We can see you this time, so that's good.
So-
So I just updated, you heard, we had no positive cases, no one out currently actively getting tested. And so things are in good shape for us right now, knock on wood.
Yes.
COVID related.
Right. There we have nobody that's tested. We have nobody with symptoms right now. Like you mentioned earlier, there is a pop-up site this week in Raleigh, Mass, at the Need Center. So if any staff or families of any individuals that are looking to have them tested, they can reach out to myself or Matt Johnson, and we'll get the information that's needed put into the system so that they'll be registered.
Good. Do you know, I forgot to ask, I didn't mention, do we have any staff tested positive right now, or any recent staff that got tested positive?
No.
Oh, wow, that's
no,
great.
we're doing well, yeah. But that, that doesn't mean that we can, lower our guard. We still need to wear our masks and, wash our hands.
Right.
Keep cleaning everything. That's high touch areas.
And so we still follow that same protocol of anyone going into before shift, temperature checks, logging the temperature checks, all of the wellness checks. Yep. And we will continue doing that going forward indefinitely.
Yes, yeah. It's worked well for us, how we're doing things, so.
Good.
Why change?
Awesome. So all those updates and all that news related to status with positive cases is great news. I thought two other things we talk about with you, while I have you, is just some sort of general guidance for visitations. You can't hear me?
Something happened with yours. I think it's you.
I can hear you, Dan.
Okay.
So Greg can hear me. So hopefully the other attendees might be able to hear me.
Okay. It got all staticky.
So we're just talking about the proposed plan for visitations in the residential homes, and just wanted to talk about some guidelines while you were on the webinar with me. And really what we're going to do is I'm going to just gloss over what we have here as DDS recommendations for visitations for families in the residential homes and networks, and we will just touch on those and illuminate those so that everybody knows the framework for which we're working in, and some limitations that we will continue to address on a case-by-case basis and workarounds when we need to. So what we're looking at is, the visitations at the group homes, of course, all being outside. No family members or parents or guardians are able to get into the residential unit at that point. That is one thing DDS has been very clear about and very, very strict about, that they want to happen and to continue. We also know the temperatures and wellness checks and all of that will happen for any visitors coming in to the residential programs. And we will track and log that information. We are also going to need every visit at the residential program to be scheduled. And so we're going to do one family at a time and have them pre-planned and scheduled. And so work with your direct manager and director to make sure and schedule in a time at your residential home. I know that a couple of these visits and groups visiting has happened already, and I don't anticipate any conflicts with times, but certainly as soon as you know what time works for you, please reach out to the managers and the directors and get that scheduled. A lot of people, every visit or every sort of person that has reached out about visiting has talked about possibly bringing food with them or doing takeout or things like that, and all that would be allowed. We would just certainly make sure that paper plates and plastic silverware is used, and all that is disposed after each visit. And we will certainly disinfect and clean after each visit. We have set up a number of tents, the pop-up tents, and I know some houses have them equipped, the gazebo and other things, but so that visits can happen even if the weather is slightly less than perfect or maybe even too hot and sunny, that you can get some protection from the sun. And so you know, we would definitely make sure that those tents are up and ready for when we know visits are scheduled and seating set up. So, and of course, all the visits, we will continue to practice social distancing, and, you know, encourage the 6 feet distance at all times, and all people will be required to wear masks. And so, you know, some of these guidelines, which if you went on the DDS Facebook website and were posted on other DDS sort of social media sites. It also recommends, you know, only 2 visitors per time for each visit for each individual. And so certainly we're going to try our best to adhere to that. I do know that there are times when, like we had coming up, or like we had just passed and we have coming up, where it's a special event, somebody's birthday, and more people want to join for that celebration. And so we're, you know, work with your manager and they'll help to facilitate that. And you know, I think in my opinion, and this is, you know, this is something that I think we'll work within the framework for which DDS gave us and the recommendations they gave. But I think inherently there is a risk with everything we do. And I also think that there is a huge benefit in having, you know, family members and loved ones visit as much as they can and not be limited to 2 people at a time. And so certainly birthdays, celebrations, and times that it's planned out, we want to be able to allow that and help facilitate it, and just basically make sure we have it all planned and things are set up appropriately. So, so Sharon, I don't know if I missed anything. I know you had a chance to look at them too. Any thoughts? I know.
No, I just reminding people that, you know, the staff will be, you know, taking their temp if they come to visit. So just be aware of those things, that, you know, don't get there and be offended that we're going to ask you questions and take your temp as per the guidelines. It's the things we do for the staff as well, just to keep everybody safe.
Right.
And to follow.
You know, and we're asked to log that information. We're asked
Yes.
to sort of be able to recreate a, you know,
Contact tracing.
Well, yeah, attendance sheet of visitors that came in, and also verify that the wellness checks were done. And so that's why we ask not to wait until you come upon the staff to put your mask on, to wear your mask in to, you know, into the program environment, so that staff that can test you will have a mask on, and you know, we'll do our best to keep the social distancing after the temperature checks have been done. So I guess next, if you know, so I think the residential visits, I think we're all, at least from the family members I talk with and from just all our internal conversations, I think we're most excited about that continuing to happen. We will post the DDS recommendations at the residential homes, just so people, if want to get a greater look when they come, they certainly can. But really, it's just telling us to do those things that we know has become almost common practice nowadays. You know, the temperature checks, the wellness checks, all wearing a mask, social distancing. None of this should shock any of us. We've certainly heard about it enough. So if we want to shift gears, we can shift gears a little bit, and we'll shift gears to day services. Now I know this has caused a lot of anxiety amongst a lot of people. I know both residentially, both day service individuals and families who live at home as well as attend the residential program, but also for our day service staff and really what's next. And you know, last week originally we heard the governor's plan talk about our programs being part of phase 2 possibly, and maybe in his mind, or maybe what that was meant, that you know, visitations to some of our programs might be in phase 2, because really that's all that was really presented in phase 2 for our programs was visitations into the residential homes with no real language specific about CBDS services and day services as a whole. So what we know, and I think it's a key ingredient, is that Mass Health Mass Health and DDS, I should say now, based on the information we got last week, has set the framework for the way they see the current structure running with the telehealth services and the wellness checks in 4 times a month and other guidelines that they wrote, that they expect that to happen to the end of June. So it's starting the 1st of July has sort of been the internal conversation we had. We knew that we sort of anticipated some type of timeline coming after the 1st of July. And so there is a rough plan that some people have heard about already, and some people had questions about already. So I just wanted to go into my interpretation of it, or our interpretation of it right now, and what we are working to. We do, just to remind everybody, we do have a group that meets weekly and talks about the reopening strategy, because it does affect so many different aspects of this agency and in different sites. And so DDS's plan is part of a phase 4. It's instead of 1 to 4 like Governor Baker's plan, they tried to share the same format, and they did A through D. And so their first phase is phase A, which and so they're looking at July 6th as being the earliest date for day services to be able to open and get back to day services in some capacity. That would be July 6th, and that the most of the capacity that they will allow at that time for one setting would be 25%. So as of July 6th, 25% of the individuals could start to come back to day services. So what that means for us and how we look at the 25% and all of that, I don't have the answers for, but I think if I was a parent or a guardian and I really wanted to know what's next, when's the time frame, when can I talk to my son or daughter about when they might be able to get back to some semblance, we're thinking July 6th for 25%. We do run a number of programs in the community. We do have to find out where we fall under those guidelines. In my opinion, that should be able to happen easily by July 6th, if not sooner, but we have to continue to work through that. And then as we go forward, we're looking at a 3-week sort of in between, make sure there's been no setback after phase A and go into phase B, which phase B would allow us to go up to 35% capacity. And the earliest for phase B taking place would be July 27th, but DDS wants the ability to be able to delay that a little bit if they need to. And then of course, phase C, which again would be another 3 weeks out. So the earliest that could possibly be is August 21st. And that would be at 50% capacity. So 50% capacity for day services is what they're anticipating, what they're hoping for come August 21st or sometime around that time frame. And so and really any specifics about what programs that affects, what that doesn't, how we're going to address transportation. There's been so much conversation about how transportation will be addressed during these phases. We won't get into here because all this is just a draft and just rough guidelines. And so, but for me, and from the conversations we had internally, I don't think it's fair to not be able to give some type of information about what people are thinking out there right now when it relates to timeframes, because the worst thing is not to have any time frame, in mind for anyone. This helps people to really put in some structure to what they plan on doing in their summers and activities they might want to plan, or just in general, just when they can talk to their son and daughter about returning to work or to their day program. And then so we have phase D, right? Phase D, DDS is referring to as the new normal. And then so what phase D really means, they didn't outline. And so there were many questions today. Will the new normal be continued at 50%? Will the new normal allow for, programs to go back to normal? There was really no determination or no anything etched in stone, but it did not sound like the motivation or the determination was that the new normal would allow us to be at full capacity in day programs in August. And so I personally don't think I think we need to address one step at a time. We've tried to do that as we've gone through this whole process. Here's the information in front of us. Here's what we can address at this time. And so I think that's the way we're going to sort of take DDS's phases into as the first time we've gotten any information. So that's great, right? Because we haven't, and to this point, we've been sort of in the dark. And so now we know, that they're looking at the 1st of July possibly as being a first part of the governor's phase. And so that would be governor's phase 3, which, last week we heard DDS was going to be in phase 4, and now we're seeing a little more movement to get our individuals back to some normalization, which in my opinion, I believe is so desperately needed for routines and for peace of mind and mental health and everything for everyone involved. And so that's the framework we have right now, with July 6th being that 25% capacity and how it will start. Anything else from there, I'm just going to resist the urge to go into, only because of so many people just having different speculation of how they would handle that for their agency, or who that affects, or how they're going to do transportation. I don't think we have any of those answers yet. So Sharon, I don't know, that was a lot of information. I don't know if you want to expand on anything.
No, because it's just a rough framework. It doesn't give us anything specific to really delve into.
Right. Yeah. So certainly it doesn't. We do know that we have some unique groups, CBDS groups, the No Walls groups that never come into the building. And those are such a tight-knit group where, they'd be in the community, they'd be practicing social distance, they'd be wearing their masks. Certainly there is some type of risk there, but really the risks of everything else they're doing once they're not in that CBDS activities, which is some of them are going on activities right now, as we know, in their group homes, going for rides and outings. Some of them, there's not greater inherent risk, in my opinion, for those groups, because we would follow all the proper protocols. So I think we'd be able to get them back to normalization and have that not affect that 25% capacity. So I think that 25% capacity is facility-based, which I think in NuPath's structure, I think that is great news. That is great news for us. And so many of our residential programs and the club programs run out of the residential program and start their day in the community doing different activities. And so I think we're going to be able to really capture services for a lot of people, or a lot more than hopefully 25%. Certainly there's going to be a good portion impacted, and we're going to work through everything we know for what those people can expect. There's been no conversation, no discussion about having 1 week on for a group, 1 week off for a group. There's been no conversation about 2 days on a week, 2 days off, and certainly many providers, and us included in that, definitely want to look into that a little more in depthly, and because if there is a large portion of people that need to wait to the end of July to start doing some services and getting out into the community and getting into their day services, with, again, hopefully with the remote learning and telehealth continuing, that can happen. But I think it would be more beneficial to do a week on, a week off, or something like that. But again, we just don't have enough information. So anything else, Sharon? I know I said a lot there. I might have covered some of the stuff you were going to cover.
No.
Okay. All right. So Greg, I don't really have any more updates. Again, just before we even get into questions, I just want to say thank you to all the staff and to families and to the nurses and all the teams that have just been continuing to do what we do so that we could get to this point, which is no positive cases, no active people waiting on being tested, everyone being healthy at all the programs. We did everything we did, which, the reward we should all just, take a minute and enjoy is everyone being healthy and being safe in their homes, and staff being safe with their families. And, now we need to figure out what's next and what's the next planning stage. And as we tried to do from the beginning is we'll try to keep people up to date and share as much as we know. But with the state, sometimes things don't move very, very fast. With expanded updates on what we have so far for phases. And but we will certainly share that information when that comes in. So, all right.
Yeah.
Greg, any questions? Anything I
Yes.
missed?
Yes. First question is, and I know we don't have the answers on this yet, but how will it be determined who is in the 25% in phase A?
So I'm not sure if that question came in now. That's a great question. I actually had that come in to my email from another family member. Again, I'll just share the information that where they're at right now. DDS is under the opinion that should be for individuals who are living at home with their families, that they want to prioritize those groups first. And so that would make up the first 25%. Where NuPath differs quite a bit in that is that so many of our day program staff have been working in the residential homes, are used to starting their days in the residential homes and going out on activities. And so how we're able to expand and not have to be just limited to that 25% being those individuals that live at home with their family members or parents, is that we're able to show the same services that we've been providing for all the prior years. We can continue those in the community, and that small portion of their day may be due out of the residential homes rather than coming into the day programs or have rolling schedules in the day programs. And so that's why I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to serve more than just 25% and include our residential homes. And then it just comes down to what's DDS going to, what's the funding structure going to look like for DDS at this time for us to be able to do that? Will they commit, the money needed to be able to run almost on two tracks? So.
Okay. The other question was, I'm just going to throw it out there and you've already talked about it, but do we have any idea when the people living at home will be able to go back to the residences and spend the weekend at home? And on that, the same question we've had repeatedly, will staff be tested on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I'll answer the first part of that question is so an individual living with us at our residential program going home for a visit for a weekend and coming back. DDS has really stood strong that they don't want to allow that to happen now, and certainly don't want to allow that to happen at least until July. That doesn't mean that they're still going to be able to say that once July comes. Maybe they'll say that, and maybe we'll just have a more in-depth plan for us to be able to come to terms with that and allow that to happen, because I do think that's an inherent risk that I think families and individuals will want to take, right? You're going home to a safe environment, controlled safe environment. If there's any time that social distancing needs to be practiced or proper wellness checks and all that will happen, we'll work with those families particularly. But I don't think individuals not being able to be allowed going home and then to go home and then not to be able to come back into the program because they were exposed to some parents or some family members, when there might be systems and mechanisms we can put in place to ensure that happens, which is maybe a wellness check and safety checks for that family the week beforehand, maybe testing for that family to prove at that snapshot of the time that they don't have it, or just maybe in general, that's a risk that that's the new norm. We all just have to proceed with. And you know, we do know, and I'm not saying this in a negative way whatsoever, but we do know a number of the cases that have happened at other providers that the groups in the group homes, they haven't been out into the community, they haven't been engaged with their families, they haven't gone anywhere. So the only way that they could have, you know, become positive is by staff bringing that in. And staff are going home to their families. And so that's an inherent risk that we have to figure out now. And so I think those are all great questions. I'd like to say, here's a date, this is what we're going to do. But certainly DDS has been pretty firm with that if a family member feels the need to take somebody home to their house and don't want to follow the guidelines that they're giving right now, that they're considering it, you're just declining your right for services. That's certainly not how we've addressed it. We've had 2 cases of people for particular situations have to go home. And when they did, before returning, as I talked about last week, they had to go for a COVID test, and right from the COVID test, once it was negative, our staff brought them directly back into the residential programs. And so we don't know with this pop-up testing that will be available to us and be able to continue. So we're just going to adapt that plan and that schedule once we know more specifics and what guidelines are. So, and I think I talked so much, I forgot the second part of the question. What was the second part?
The second part was, will staff be tested on a regular basis?
Yeah, so it's still not, you know, we encourage all staff to get tested. Anyone that feels that they, you know, if they know that they've been exposed to the virus and have interacted with someone who was tested positive, you know, they have, you know, they have to go get themselves tested. I think that's a moral responsibility, but or they have to quarantine. But for us, we cannot mandate that all staff get tested at this time, and the state has not mandated that. We just know, I think everybody's trying to do the right thing, and our staff have been great, and families have been great. And so I think when anyone has had any risks, you know, we've all seen how deadly and how bad this virus can get, that people have done the right thing and quarantine themselves when necessary, or get themselves tested, or and so we're not able to mandate all staff being tested. And quite honestly, I don't personally know if that's the best plan going forward, because that's just a snapshot in time, and that would be a rolling snapshot for all staff, because we're not able to test all staff at once. And so that's not really anything that we expect to be a strategy going forward, used by DDS or used by NuPath to say that everyone will need to get tested, and here's, you know, we'll be testing on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis or those type of things. I'm not sure when, if that plan would be ever invoked, but certainly not ours now. So.
Okay, last question, and it's just general, really. I guess it's who will contact transportation companies for clients, family homes, so that they know when the client should start? And I guess from the same person, who do we contact for these types of questions moving forward?
I'm sorry, Greg, I missed some of that question. Can you just repeat that for me, please?
Yeah, the first one was, who will contact the transportation company for clients living at home with families to let them know when the client will start. But it was coupled with the same question, who do we contact going forward to answer these types of questions?
I think, you know, you certainly can contact your service coordinator. I don't know at the service coordinator level how much of this information they're going to have. I think it'd be best at this time to just reach out to your program manager or your contact, you know, at day services to help work through that, because I do know that you know, some of the thought behind DDS's plan to have people who live at home first come into programs involve some parents doing transportation for their loved ones that are living in home, and not everyone's going to be able to facilitate that. And so certainly I do think we're still waiting on more information, but I do think that that's a plan they're going to try to invoke, is that they'll ask parents and guardians to drive people into the programs so that DDS can figure out transportation a little longer. Now, if you're on a single and direct route, or if you are, have other ways that you can figure out how to get your family member to the program, I think they're going to try to work with you on a case-by-case basis with that. So yeah, but that's not that they have not shared that plan, and that is not etched in stone. And I think we're just going to need to be able to facilitate what we can facilitate once we get some guidelines.
Right, just on these guidelines, the phase C is the only one that they even mentioned, that it would allow for limited transportation to be provided. So it's not even talked about in the, I know this is just a draft, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important. It's not even mentioned in DDS's plan to phase D, because I think they just can't, and I don't blame them for this part, wrap their heads around transportation as a whole right now. I mean, there are 15 passenger vans that go out and pick up 12, 13 individuals at a time. But I do think also that there are plans and there are situations that we can put forward to problem solve individual cases as they come up. If your son or daughter, is working at a program, a job, can we do transportation for that? Right now, DDS does not have a structure for us to be able to do transportation for that, but we do know we are transporting some people that work in the community. We also have other people taking Ubers to their jobs. So we will work with everyone to try to meet their needs as much as we can do. And part of that means sharing the guidelines that DDS puts out there too, so that when we're trying to come up with the plan, that DDS's guidelines and what their expectations are too, so that we can come to a resolution. So.
All right, thanks guys. No more questions.
All right, no more questions. So we had a little paving truck and dogs barking, and so hopefully that didn't come through too loud. But I guess I wanted to say, I know Dan will be back on Thursday. We are going to talk about and present some new structure on these meetings and what we're thinking about going forward. Because as we know right now, and as we hope, right, the cases are at a manageable level, and we're able to really start to plan out what's next steps for phasing, for us meeting the guidelines and phases of reopening. And so we're talking about some different strategies to maybe decrease these webinars and meetings from 3 times a week to maybe once or twice a week, or as needed. So I think I'll have a little update on that, and then we'll go from there. Again, if anyone has any questions, certainly reach out to your contact at NuPath if anything wasn't clear, or reach out to us specifically, and we'll try to keep you informed as much as we can as we go forward. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Greg.
See you, Dan.
Thank you.